satisfied were vain and empty until the moment you rescued me and your love filled me. My soul sings, now my soul sings. What blessed assurance I found in you, I found in you. I won't be shaken, I will not be moved. How steadfast your strong hand is keeping me, is keeping me. I won't be shaken, I will not be moved. Oh, blessed assurance. Hey guys, welcome to our first video service. So today what I'm going to do, I'm going to preach to you guys through YouTube channel, and I hope it's a blessing to you guys. I know this coronavirus has got everybody on edge, and it's got everyone locked down in their houses and you can't escape, but we want to do this just so we can bring this message to the Word of God to you. As you know, tomorrow I'm going to be posting, this is Saturday, so tomorrow, Sunday, I'll be posting this video on YouTube. We're also going to be meeting. We had a little service, kind of get together, social distancing still, but up on Mount Davison, and we were able to talk through this same sermon. So if you were there with us, this is just going to be a little bit more of an extended sermon of the little talk that we gave up there on Mount Davison. But I'm glad for all of our viewers that you're out there, and we want you to know that we're praying for you as Branches Baptist Church, and that if you need anything, we are here to help you guys. A couple things I want to introduce to you guys. There is in the Sunset a group called the Sunset Neighborhood Help Group, and we're part of that on a Facebook group. And what it is, it connects people that are in need of help with people living in the Sunset. And so you have elderly people, people with children, people that just can't get out of the house for groceries or for other needs. And what it does, it connects people that can help out in those ways. And so, for instance, myself and my wife, we've been able to help out different elderly couples by bringing them groceries. We've been able to distribute flyers, just kind of telling the community that we are out there and willing to help them. And so I really encourage those people that are part of Branches to get involved in that group. I know several of us live in the Sunset neighborhood, and so get involved with that group. If you need information about how to get involved in that group, please contact me, and we can get you involved with them. It's just, a lot of times it's just simple things. It's like picking up some groceries for an elderly couple, or giving somebody a ride from one place to another so they don't have to take public transportation, or just helping out with kids, or picking up medicine, or bringing somebody something. Or sometimes it's just being there for somebody, giving someone a phone call. I know we get so isolated through this, shelter in place, that sometimes we just need someone to call us, just someone to talk to, and someone to see. And so please get involved in that. That's one way during this time that we can really be the church and show the light of Jesus Christ to our neighborhood. And it's a great way to make contacts, great way to get out there. If you need more information, please contact me. So I'm going to start off just with a word of prayer, and then we're going to dive into this. So let's pray. Lord God, thank you for your goodness. Thank you for your grace. God, this is different times where we are constrained to our homes, where we're highly advised and even commanded not to get out and to associate with large groups of people, not to stand close to people. God, and so it makes this all weird. It makes us strange as we are trying to respond to this, Lord. But help us just to seek out avenues to still minister to the people in our communities and still minister to each other. Pray, God, that this video can be a blessing to those that are seeking to worship you, seeking to grow in you, and seeking to hear your word preached, God, even from the safety of their home. Lord, I pray that you would be with this whole situation with the virus. Lord, I pray that you be with all those that have COVID, Lord, and just heal them of that. Be with this whole situation. I pray that those that have it will start to decrease, and then we could start seeing the curve go down and down and down until this is no longer an issue, Lord. And I pray, God, that you would just be with our nation during this time. We desperately need you now. And Lord, I pray that the people that are in their own homes, Lord, with more time to think, more time on their hands, just sitting there, Lord, will be convicted of their sins. We'll hear from your Spirit. We'll grow in you, Lord, and we'll reach out for Christian community. God, I pray that you would be with us and help us realize that even though this is the time that we're living in, to not be fearful, that you are in control, that your power is still great, that you are still on the throne of heaven and earth, and that none of this takes you by surprise. God, I pray that we can just live in that truth and that we can just love you and follow you all the days of our lives. I pray these things in your Son's name. Amen. All right, so we're going to jump back into Luke. So we've been going through the book of Luke. I know some of you have been with us from the beginning, since November, when we've been going through the book of Luke. And so you're kind of tracking with us. And I know some of you have just jumped in over the last few weeks. Last week we had somebody new. And so maybe that's you. Maybe you're just jumping into the middle of it. But I want to tell you, don't worry. We'll revisit Luke some other time. It's a beautiful book. For me personally, diving into Luke this time has been very revealing. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think Luke was one of those books, as far as the Gospels go, that I probably overlooked the most, except for maybe the first chapter or so. First couple chapters, birth of Jesus, of course. But the rest of it, I kind of overlooked, kind of skipped through quickly. I've studied out Matthew and Mark even, and even dove into John. But Luke, I've kind of passed over, but I've been so amazed as we've gone chapter through chapter through the book of Luke at just how beautiful it is. Luke has this way of taking a centralized theme or an idea and presenting it in the chapter through the stories that he tells, the miracles, the teachings, and kind of having this cohesive idea that he presents to us each and every week through each chapter. And it's been very convicting and very just deepening my relationship with the Lord. Now, each week as he's done that, you can just see how God and the Holy Spirit just wrote this through him and how he put it all together so beautifully. And now we went through chapter 13 and 14 last week at our service. But this week we're going to dive into chapter 15. I have to say, all the way up until now, the beautiful ideas that Luke has been putting together has been absolutely beautiful and amazing. We learn about discipleship. But then chapter 15, he presents another idea, the centralized theme that I think is in some ways the absolute most beautiful. It's definitely the most humbling of all chapters and the most convicting and charge for action and to take action. And so I hope you get to study through this with me. I'm going to be reading through chapter 15 of Luke. You can read along with me if you have your Bibles or your Bible apps open right now. And we'll do this. Now, there are 3 major sections to this chapter, and it's all one theme, though. It's all kind of coherent. It's all going together. It's all flowing down the same stream. And so we're going to look at this theme, but I want you guys to read with me as we go through these different sections. So the first section is verse 1 and 2. All right, verse 1 and 2. This is what it says. Then drew near unto him, this is Jesus, then drew near unto Jesus all the publicans and sinners for to hear him. And the Pharisees and scribes murmured, saying, This man receives sinners and eats with them. So this first section, what you see is these 2 groups of people. All right, you first see these publicans and sinners. Now, the publicans, these were the tax collectors of the time, right? They worked for Rome, they taxed people, and many times they were known for taking extra than what they should have, right? They are kind of thieves. They would charge people, overtax people, and pocket the rest, right? So they were just despicable people. And I mean, no one likes giving their taxes, obviously, but they really hated it. And a lot of times what would happen too is that these would be Jewish men. For instance, Matthew was one of these tax collectors. Jewish men that would collect taxes from their own people. And what this was seen as by the Jewish people is seen as an absolute act of treason, an act of just being a traitor to your own people, that you would work for this ruling government and tax your own people, take your own people's wages, was something that was so offensive that these tax collectors weren't even allowed to participate in worship in the synagogues. right? They were total outcasts in society, people that everyone agreed, hey, let's hate these people. All right, you agree, I agree. All right, good. We're going to hate them and outcast them. Now, the second group of people mentioned here is this group of sinners. This was this overarching idea of these people that were completely living their life complete opposite to the moral code God given, right? So the Ten Commandments, these moral codes that people were supposed to follow, especially these Jewish people, they were living totally opposite of that. So these would be idolaters, people that would worship idols, people that were tax collectors, people that were prostitutes, people that were criminals, that were thieves, were debtors, were all these just wicked people. And so you have these two categories of people, and what they really were was just the total outcast in society, right? People that no one else associated with, no one followed, no one wanted to even talk to. If you saw these people on the road, you just keep walking by, you wouldn't care about them at all. And so that's what these two type of people. But notice what it says. Notice what it says here in verse 1. It says, then drew near unto him these publicans and sinners to hear him. So these publicans and sinners, even though they're outcast from the rest of the society, now they are drawing near to Jesus. They are coming close to Jesus, specifically to hear him. See, there was something about Jesus that was drawing these people in. There was something about his teaching, his mannerisms, the things that he believed, the way he acted, that drew these people to him. We see in just a second that it was really his relationship, his love for them that drew them. And so all this type of people, these outcasted societies, are now getting closer and closer to Christ. But they're not the only group that is there. And so in verse 2, we see the second group. The second group, what you see is verse number 2. It says, and the Pharisees and the scribes. So the second group is the Pharisees and the scribes. And the Pharisees and the scribes, these were the hyper-religious people of the time, right? These were the people that they followed all the moral codes that God laid down as best, as just as stringently as possible. They followed them to the T. And not only that, but they would add laws to them to make it even harder to follow, right? So it was a way of them building up their own pride. Like, look at all these things I'm doing right. Look at all the ways that I'm following God and living up to this moral code and doing X, Y, and Z so everyone can praise me. That's the kind of idea that they had. And so these were these Pharisees and these scribes. And what happened is they felt themselves to be so much higher than the rest of society that they felt that they can look down on everyone else, right? They felt that they can look at the other people, like these publicans and sinners, and they can look down upon them. They wouldn't associate with them. To them, it was wrong to even associate with them, right? If you had a relationship with a publican or sinner, that was wrong. That was bad. That was terrible. And so they would often look down on you. And so here we have these two groups of peoples, these Pharisees, these scribes, and these publicans and sinners, right? Total opposite sides of the spectrum, the social spectrum. And they would not hang out with each other, not be around each other. But here's this central figure. Here's Jesus. And for some reason, Jesus is drawing them all in, right? Now look what the Pharisees had to say about this power over people that Jesus had. And they murmured in verse 2, and they murmured saying, this man receives sinners and eats with them. Now, what was interesting about this, I think, is how they started off, like, this man. They didn't refer to him even by name. They didn't refer to him as Messiah. They didn't even call him what Jesus often called himself, this Old Testament term for Messiah. He would often refer to himself as the Son of Man, right? That was an Old Testament term for this coming Messiah. They didn't even refer to him as that, this Son of Man. No, they just said this man, right? Like, you get mad at someone on the street or someone says something like, who are you, right? Like, who's this guy saying all this stuff, right? That's how they're referring to him. Like, this nobody, this regular dude, who's this bro? I mean, who in the world does this guy think he is? But listen what he says. They said that he draws them near to him. Look, he says, this man receives sinners and eats with them. This idea of receiving, this was the idea that Jesus would allow these people, these sinful people, to come to him. Something that none of the Pharisees would ever allow, they would never allow a Pharisee or scribe, never allow this publican, this sinner, to even get close to them, to even talk with them, to conversate with them, nothing. Like, no, you receiving them is wrong, right? And so in their mind, that's what Jesus was doing. He was receiving these publicans and sinners to himself, and this was total wrong. This is terrible. This was not right in their eyes. The fact that Jesus would even allow them to get close to him was wrong. But then they take it one step further as well. In this next part of the verse, it tells them the step further that they take. It says there in verse 2, and eateth with them. And he eats with them. It wasn't bad enough that Jesus would receive them to himself, right? That wasn't bad enough. But now, the fact that Jesus would eat with them, that was even worse. You know, when you think about eating with someone, it's this great time of just absolute special connection with somebody when you share a meal with them. I mean, you think of like a first date, right? What do you typically do with someone on a first date? You go out to dinner, right? You ask the girl, hey, can I take you to dinner? Why? Because there's something about eating together that just grows a relationship, right? Not only you're sitting down, you're eating a meal, and you're doing something that you both physically need, right? We all need nourishment. We all need food. And so you're providing for yourself in that way, and you're doing that with someone else. So you're hitting your physical core needs, right? Your base needs, food, drink, water to sustain yourself. And so you're meeting that. But then when you go out to dinner as well, it's like you're eating and you're enjoying what you're eating as well. And so now it's not even just meeting your physical needs, but now it's meeting your wants, your desires, you're enjoying something together. And so now when you're eating out with somebody, now you have this meal that you're providing for yourself with, but you're also enjoying with someone. So with someone else, you are now being provided for and enjoying something, seeking pleasure in. But then it's not even that takes you to the core relationship. It's what goes on while you're eating. It's that conversation, right? You're talking back and forth with somebody. You're having a conversation where you're able to enjoy one another's company, find out who each other are, really seeking to know everything about that person's life, and they know about your life, and you get to know somebody really well, right? That's why eating with someone is this deep personal relationship. No one wants to eat alone. It's a very lonely thing to go to a restaurant and eat alone. It's just kind of lonely because you don't have that. You're not sharing that experience with somebody, and you're not sharing a conversation with someone. And so not only was Jesus receiving them, allowing these sinners to get close to him, to be with him, to hear his teaching, but he's taken it one step further. Now Jesus is seeking a relationship with them. And this could not be more wrong to these Pharisees and scribes. It could not be more of a social faux pas, of more of something that you're doing that is completely wrong. You, who are supposed to be a teacher of God's word, a teacher of the law, right? This teacher that people are following, you're associating with sinners and publicans, these wicked people. But not only that, you're seeking a relationship with them. It makes this terrible. This is terrible, okay? This is terrible in their eyes. And so they're murmuring about it. They're complaining about it. But see, this sets up the rest of the chapter, the next two parts, where Jesus is going to make it very clear. And without even allowing them to raise the question, right? He's going to answer their heart issues for these publicans and sinners. And so I want you to remember these two groups of people. Remember that it is these sinners and these publicans on one side. And then on the other side, you have these Pharisees and scribes, right? These hyper-religious people on the other side, because that sets the context for the rest of what goes on. Excuse me, my throat. So in this next part, Jesus gets into these two stories, these two short parables about a lost sheep and a lost coin. So here he goes. And he starts off in verse 4. What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he lose one of them, doth leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one which is lost until he find it? And when he had found it, he layeth on its shoulders, rejoicing. And when he cometh home, he calleth together his friends and his neighbors, saying unto them, Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost. I say unto you that likewise joy shall be in heaven over one sinner that repenteth, more than over 99 just person which needs no repentance. Either, what woman, having 10 pieces of silver, if she loses one piece, does not light a candle and sweep the house and seek diligently till she finds it? And when she has found it, she called her friends and her neighbors together, saying, Rejoice with me, for I have found the piece which I had lost. Likewise, I say unto you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of our God over one sinner that repenteth. So Jesus starts off in these two short little stories, parables about this lost sheep and this lost coin. And he starts it off like this. And I think it's very telling because he says this. He says, what man of you? So he's like, which of you? Who of you? And so he points to them right directly. He doesn't give this idea that it's talking about someone else from some other location. He points directly to them with these two stories. And he brings out these two stories in such a way that everyone listening can relate to it, right? So first he says, what man of you, if you have a sheep, right? If you have a flock of sheep and one of those sheep wanders off and gets lost, who is not going to go and try to find the sheep? He says everyone does. Everyone they'll leave the 99 and they'll go and find that one sheep. They don't just go, well, lost another one, oh well, and move on. No, they leave the 99 and they go and seek diligently for that one sheep. They're going to try to find that sheep, even though that sheep has wandered off on its own, even though that sheep is in the wrong, right? Left the safety of the group, left the safety of the shepherd, and he's wandered off on his own into danger. As a shepherd, you're still going to be the one that's going to go out and seek to find that one, right? And so that's what's going on here. That person is seeking to find that sheep. Then he gives this other story, another secondary story. He gives a story of finding this lost coin. So a lady, she has these pieces of silver. She drops one somewhere without even knowing. And then all of a sudden, she goes and she loses it, and she realizes she loses it. And so she searches the whole house to try to find it, sweeping, throwing over furniture, and trying to find it, right? And these ideas of losing something and then seeking something out is something that we can all relate to, right? For instance, in my house, what happens every single day without fail is the fact that my wife will, at some point during the day, lose her phone, right? Like it gets misplaced. One of the kids takes it and runs away with it, which happens most of the time. And what happens during that time is that we all frantically try to search for it. We're like, hey, where's my phone? I don't know. So we all get up, we look under the couch, look under the couch cushions, look behind things, under things, look in our kids' mouths if they're running around with it somewhere until we find it. And so we can all identify with that. Like when we lose something, we search it out. We try to find that thing until we find it. And so Jesus is identifying that this is something that's part of all of us. That if we lose something that is dear to us, we are going to do everything in our power to try to seek it out. And then this is what he takes it one step further, though, okay? And this is what's beautiful. He says, when we do find it, we rejoice in that. And so this is really what Jesus is saying, okay? He's relating this to the publicans and sinners. You know, in chapter 13, when we studied through last week, we saw this fact that Jesus made it very clear that if we don't repent, we're all going to perish. That all of us are on an equal playing field, that we're all sinners before a holy God, that we've all committed acts of treason against God. And that's the thing. A lot of times we look at our sin and we think we think so small about our sin. Like, oh, I just told a little lie. I just stole some office supplies. I just lied about this or did this or cheated on this way and didn't do this, didn't pray enough, whatever. And we think it's so small. Oh, I just messed up. It's okay. Moving on. But we got to realize that every sin that we commit is an act of treason against our God. It's an act of war against our Creator. It is saying, God, I am acting against you, not for you. I am opposing you, not going along with you, not obeying you, not listening to you. I am resisting you. That is what our sin is. And it's huge. It's huge. It's not this small little thing that we just get to play with and just think, oh, you know what? It's just this little thing and it's okay and move on. It is a big thing. It is a major thing to sin against a holy God. Our Creator, who made us and fashioned us and loves us and cares for us, to sin against him is huge. And the thing is, we are all guilty. We are all guilty before a holy God. We have all sinned in a major way. We've all messed up. We're all the lost sheep. But what's incredible is that Jesus comes after us. The Bible says that Jesus came to seek and to save the lost. And that's so true here. That Jesus came to seek us out so he could save us. We are the lost sheep that have gone astray, turned everyone to his own way. And yet the Lord has laid on Christ the iniquity of us all. He laid on Jesus our sins so that we can be saved. Like, can you fathom that love? Can you grasp it for just a second? Just thinking about how truly awesome and great that is. That Jesus would even care. That we would commit an act of treason against him, and yet he still comes after us is mind-boggling. That he loves us that much. I mean, someone cuts us in line or cuts us off in traffic, and we're ready to write them off the rest of our lives, right? And yet we sin against God every single day. And yet while we are sinners, Christ died for us. That's how much he loves us. That he's willing to go to the ends of the earth to seek us out and draw us to him. He wants to receive us to him. He wants a relationship with us. And that's incredible. And it's so humbling, right? So humbling to think that the almighty God of the universe would care that much for me. I mean, that should drive us to our knees more than anything. Just being thankful to God that he loves us that much. That even though we wandered away from him, that he diligently sought us and brought us back to himself. Now, that's incredible. But this goes even deeper than that. It goes even deeper. And this is how. Look what he says happens, right? The people, when the shepherd goes and he finds his lost sheep, when the woman finds her coin, she doesn't just go, oh, found it, the end. Look what happens in verse 7, or in verse 8 and 6. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors and says unto them, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep, which was lost. And the woman says the same thing in verse 9. And when she had found it, she calls her friends and her neighbors together, saying, rejoice with me, for I have found the piece which I had lost. And then listen what Jesus says. He relates this back to heaven. He says, I say unto you that likewise joy shall be in heaven over one sinner that repents, more than over 99 just persons which need no repentance. And he repeats the same idea again in verse 10. Likewise, I say unto you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner that repents. See, it's not even enough that Jesus would seek us out and find us, right? Like the shepherd, he could have just found the sheep, put him on his shoulders like it says he does. The woman could have found the coin, put it back in her pocket, in her purse, and just been like, all right, found it. Awesome, good. Moving on. But that's not where it ends. It's not only that they took the time to sort out the thing that was lost. It's that when they finally found it, they call everyone they know to put on this celebration, this party, to say, you know what? This is amazing. I found that which was lost. I found my sheep. I found the coin. And that's what Jesus does for us. Right? Like he not only seeks us out to find us and bring us back to him, but then what he does is above and beyond that, he rejoices in the fact. He doesn't just leave it and going, yeah, I found them. Good. They come to me. No, he goes crazy and throws a party in all the heaven and all the angels rejoice that this one sinner has come back to him. That this one lost soul has been found, has been saved. Like that shows passion. That shows love. That shows enjoyment, right? That God not only just wants us back for our own sake, but for his sake. That he enjoys it. It says that there's joy in heaven over one sinner that returns. Wow. I mean, how amazing is that? That there is a celebration that happens when a sinner repents and turns to Jesus. When salvation enters the heart of a human soul. You know, I think we understand this concept too, right? So Tekoa, my son, this was a life-changing thing for me. We were up in Ohio at a wedding. And this wedding was at a different church. It's kind of a bigger church. And it had the sanctuary on one side and had a long hallway in the back where all the classrooms were at. Well, this was right after we had Zion. And so from any parent that has more than 2 kids, you know that once you reach that 3rd kid, your life is, pretty much over. So you have just allowed yourself to be outnumbered. And that is a dangerous situation. You know, when we had just Tekoa, it was like 2-on-1. It was fine. Like, okay, we got him. No problem. Then we had 2 kids. We had Tekoa and Judah. And it was like, okay, a little harder, but, divide and conquer. We got this. No problem. You watch him. I watch him. Then we had Zion. And then all of a sudden, it was 3-on-2. And it was unbalanced. And 3 toddlers versus 2 parents, there's no match. I mean, they're going to win, obviously. And so here's what happened. So Zion was brand new, just a few weeks old. So Haley's holding Zion, and Judah is still young enough. He's only a few months older than Zion. So I'm holding Judah. And Tekoa is old enough to walk around and explore a little bit, but I'm supposed to be keeping an eye on him, or Haley is. We don't really know. And so what happens is I'm holding Judah, talking to somebody after the wedding happened, and Haley's talking to somebody with Zion. And then a little while goes by, and I start looking around, and I realize, where's Tekoa? So I go ask Haley, hey, do you know where Tekoa is? No, I don't. And I'm like, okay. And we did that whole parent thing, I was supposed to be watching him? I thought you were watching him. I'm not watching, you were watching him. So we do that whole thing. So there's this church set next to a highway. And so immediately as a parent, your mind goes straight to that highway. You're like, oh man, he's outside. He ran outside and he got on the highway. He's standing in the middle of the road. Cars are buzzing around. That's the only option right now. And so immediately I throw Judah into someone's arms and I run outside. That's the first place I go. And I look around, but I don't see him anywhere. And so now everyone's kind of freaking out. Like, he is lost. And so we all, part of the wedding party that's there, starts exploring. And so we are all searching this church building, trying to find Tekoa. And we're searching for him. Finally, someone finds Tekoa in the nursery. Now, all the lights in the classroom have been turned off. Almost complete darkness. And he had honed in on where the toys were, like he had some kind of toy radar, and was playing with them all out on the ground in the dark. But someone finds him. They say, hey, Jake, we found him. And so we get in. Everyone's still searching. I bring Tekoa back into the lobby where everyone was looking around. They're like, oh, yeah. And you can just feel this weight lifted, right? It was lifted off of me. It was lifted off of Haley, but it was lifted off of everyone else. And everyone's like, yay, we found him. It's awesome. There was that rejoicing that happened, right? Imagine that, but only a million billion times more. That when we found Tekoa, it was exciting. It was stress relieving. It was amazing. We rejoiced. We were glad. I yelled at Tekoa a little bit, but it was good, right? Now, when a sinner comes and repents and turns to Jesus, it's completely life-changing. And there's a rejoicing that happens in heaven that is amazing. Because all of heaven rejoices in that one sinner turning from the world and turning to Jesus, repenting of their sins. That sinner, even if it's just one, is enough. That one is valued enough to merit rejoicing in all the heavens. And that is truly incredible. That we are valued enough that when we come to Christ, it merits the rejoicing of all the heavens. Like heaven shuts down so that everyone can rejoice and praise the fact that a sinner has come to repentance. That's how valued you are. It's how valued I am. That Jesus not only seeks us out to save us, but that all of heaven rejoices when we come to him. And that's truly incredible. Truly incredible. So Jesus is showing these people, he's getting to relate. He's like, you understand this. You understand the feeling that happens when you find something that is lost and the rejoicing that goes on when that found thing has finally been found. But then Jesus cuts to the heart and he makes a beeline for these Pharisees. He gives this idea, right? And this is one of the most famous stories in the Bible. I won't read the whole thing. I'll read only select sections of it. But it's the story of the prodigal son. But keeping in line with the rest of this chapter, you have the parable of the lost sheep, the parable of the lost coin. So it's really the parable of the lost son. So here it comes, and he says this in verse 11. Notice how he starts this off. And he said, a certain man had 2 sons. Many times we focus only on the one son, the younger one, right, that ran away. But this story is really about both of them, right? It's about the man and about the 2 sons. So here's the story. You know it very well. Young man, young boy, second oldest, comes to his father. He's tired of working for his dad, tired of being on the farm with his dad, tired of being under his leadership. So he says, Dad, this is what I want you to do. I want you to give me all my inheritance. And so he does. Dad gives him his inheritance, and I think that's very telling, right? That many times, even if we want something that's negative, God allows us to have what we want. Someone once said that even hell, in a way, right, is God's last mercy on people by allowing them to have what they want. You want to live a life completely void of God, of Jesus? Well, then in the afterlife, that's what God gives you, an eternal hell totally devoid of God and where there's just nothing but suffering and pain. And he allows us to have what we want, even if it hurts us. That's God allows us that freedom is just amazing. And so here the father allows the son to do that. He doesn't tell him no. He says, fine, here's your inheritance. Now we see that the son, he goes off to this big city. He spends all of his money on what's called riotous living, and just, sleeping with prostitutes and partying all the time, drinking, getting wasted, all this stuff, just this riotous, wicked living, just trying to live in the moment, right? As he says. Well, then what happens is he wastes through all of his money, and there's a severe famine that comes on the land. Right? So everyone is in this time of recession, right? Where jobs are hard to get, money is scarce, food is scarce. So his only option at this time, it says that he joins himself to this one citizen, right? Basically enslaves himself to this one person. And this guy sends him out into his fields to feed his swine, to feed his pigs. And he's there and he's feeding the pigs with this slop, with these corn husks. And he looks down at all of this just excess food, this junk that the pigs would eat. And he looks at it and he's so hungry at this time. He's so in need of nourishment that he looks at this and he even considers, he's like, man, this looks good to me. Like, this, I guess, is my only option. I am eating this. The Bible says something really profound. It says, in that moment, he comes to himself. I mean, he finally wakes up. He wakes up to the fact of all his decisions, of all the sinful things, all those sinful behaviors that he committed, all those decisions from the very time he decided to leave his father behind, to take his inheritance and run and spend it all in righteous living, all of that, right? All of that led to this moment where he finally wakes up and he realizes, I messed up. I messed up big time. He has this moment where he realizes, he says, man, even the lowest servant in my father's house eats food better than this. So I said, I'm going to go back to my dad, basically going to beg for just to be a job, to be a servant in his house. So he goes back. And what's interesting, and I love this scene, and I'll read it because it's just so beautiful. He says in verse 18, I will rise and I will go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee. I am no more worthy called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. So he says, I'm going to go and be your servant. In verse 20 says, and he rose and he came to his father. And when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion. Wait right there. A son takes his inheritance and runs away from you. goes lives a completely sinful lifestyle, and you look at them and you still have compassion. Reminds me of when Jesus, he looks out on the crowds of people that were following him, and it says that he had compassion on them as sheep that had not a shepherd. Jesus looked at people that rejected him, even when he was on the cross, right? And he looked at all the people that rejected him, spat on his face, killing him. He said, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. That's the amount of love and compassion that Jesus had. So this father looks at his son and just sees him coming home. The fact that his son was willing to come home was enough. And he had compassion on him. Look what happens. And he ran and he fell on his neck and he kissed him. He's welcoming him back just in the most physical way a father can, hugging his son and wrapping him up in his arms, kissing his cheek, saying, finally you're home. Look what the son said. Verse 21. Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and I am no more worthy to be called thy son. Look what's interesting here. First, notice this, that he doesn't even get through his whole statement. In verse 19, he says, I'm not worthy to be called your son, and this is him planning out what he's going to say to his dad. I'm not worthy to be called your son. Make me as one of your hired servants. So that's his plan. He says, God, I'm not worthy to be called your son. Make me one of your hired servants. And so he gets to this part, right? I am no more worthy to be called thy son. Stop. And look what it says, but the father said unto his servants, bring forth the best robe and put it on him, put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. So in this moment, the son is asking his father, before he even gets the words out, just make me a servant. But the dad's like, hey guys, my son's home. Put on him the robe. Put on him the ring. Put his shoes on his feet. Show him that this is my son. This is incredible, right? The son is fully willing to be made a hired servant of his dad, to be treated no better than just one of the worst servants, bottom of the totem pole, no relationship with the father. But the father rejects that idea, and before the son's even able to get those words out of his mouth, he does something to show that this is my son. Put on him the robe. Put on him the ring. Give him the brand new shoes. This is my son who's come home. To think through that, and that is how Jesus treats us. That we come back to the Father through Jesus Christ and his sacrifice, and we say, I am not worthy. I am a sinner. I have messed up. I have committed crimes against you. And God says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to adopt you into my family as my very son so that you can call me Abba, Father. That God invites us back into his family and he becomes our Father. It's incredible. Notice that the son here is repentant. He realizes his sin and he confesses them. He realizes, I've sinned against heaven and I've sinned against you. I've sinned against God and the Creator, and I've sinned against my Father. And he repents of his sin. See, this is the story of the first son. The first son was the lost. The first son had committed acts of treason against his father, and yet he repents and returns home. We, as sinners, the first step we have to make is repenting of our sins and returning to our Father, turning our back on our sin, repenting of that, and turning to God. We have to reach that level of humility where we realize we don't got it all together. We're not perfect in any way. We deserve to die. We deserve hell. We deserve all the punishment that God could give to us. But God sent his only begotten Son, as whosoever believes in him would not perish, but have everlasting life. And if we put our full faith and trust in Jesus Christ, our Father in heaven accepts us home. We have to be humble in that way. Humble enough as a sinner to repent. But there's another humility we also have to conquer as well. And that's the one of the older son. So father throws this big party. And there's all these lights, this party going on, barbecue happening. And the older son, who's been out working all day, hears all this commotion, comes up and asks a servant, what is going on? The servant says, oh, your brother's returned home. Your father's throwing this party for him. And the older brother, refuses to go in the house. No, I'm not going in then. I'm not going to celebrate that wicked person. I'm not going to celebrate. He left me behind. He left my dad behind. He took all of his inheritance. He lived in a wicked way. I'm not celebrating that. What's interesting too is that his brother knew how he was living. If you look at verse 30, it says, "But as soon as this thy son was come, which had devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed him with the fatted calf." The older brother knows how the younger brother was living. Maybe he went to search him out and beg him to come home, and was totally rejected and found him living with harlots. Or maybe he just heard stories of people returning to the city and saying, "Man, your brother is living it up. He's doing all these things." Either way, the older brother probably means the father too. They know how the younger son was living. And so the older brother is refusing to associate with this person because he is so wicked and so evil. I'm not associating with him because of all he's done. Here's what the father says. "Son," verse 31, "Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine." It was meet, it was good that we should make merry and be glad, for this thy brother was dead and he is alive again. He was lost and he is found. Here's what goes on, right? Here's what goes on. This brother is mad about this, and the father says, "Listen, you're always with me. I'm always with you. You're with me in my heart. You are here. We are in a relationship together. And everything now that I have belongs to you. Your brother, he already took his inheritance. Guess what? Everything I have is yours. This whole keys to the kingdom, it belongs to you." So he reassures that, you know what? Your reward is coming. Your reward is coming. Everything I have belongs to you. And then he says, it was good. It was good that we should throw this party for your brother. Why? Because he was lost and now he's found. He was dead and now he's alive. He's returned home. We need to throw us a party and celebrate. So what this teaches us is the Father has love for the lost, but also for the self-righteous, right? This is where Jesus gets to the heart of those Pharisees. Those Pharisees that at the beginning of the chapter were complaining that Jesus was receiving and building relationships with wicked sinners. Now at the last part of the chapter, he's saying, listen here. You follow me and you get the keys to the kingdom, but it's good for us to welcome in sinners. Many times for us as Christians, especially sometimes if we've been saved out of a rough situation, we can look at other sinners that are still there and we become judgmental. And it's a slow build, right, to become judgmental, where we start looking at people and start nitpicking. Well, how could they think like that? How can we live like that? Here in this city, in San Francisco, it is a city that's known for its sins, right? It's known for its sin. All over the country, people know San Francisco for its sins, for the things that it does weird or wrong or different or anti-God. And it's easy for us as Christians around the country, it's easy for us, for Christians living in this city, to simply just become bitter, to simply become judgmental, to simply just hate where we're living and hate all the ideas that come out of it and just hate on the sinner. Instead of being gracious, instead of having mercy, instead of seeking out these people, accepting them, letting them, receiving them, and then loving them enough to build relationship with them like Jesus did. You know, the big picture of this all and the way this ends is our responsibility. That if we were all sinners, we are all the lost sheep that Christ came to seek and to save, and he's brought us to himself. He's made us clean. He has made us sons of the King. Then what is now our responsibility? Our responsibility is to participate with him in going to search out other lost sheep, to going to find the other lost sheep and bring them to Jesus without judgment, but with love and with mercy and with kindness. That's what we're called to do. But we can never bring sheep back to Jesus if we're constantly looking down on them. Because you know what we're going to do? We're going to hold up. We're not going to go in and party. We're not going to go in and try to win them. We're not going to go after them. We're going to stay alone, held up by ourselves. It's only when we realize that, no, throw off all that judgment, throw off all that pride, throw off all that arrogancy, and go after the lost sheep. Jesus came to seek and to save the lost. Our job as believers, as those that have been found, as sons of our Heavenly Father, is to go and also seek the salvation for the lost, to bring them back to their Savior, to point them in the direction of a holy God that wants to love them, that wants a relationship with them. That is our job. And we can't become judgmental or arrogant and think that we being found somehow makes us better than everyone else. We have to remember that if it wasn't for the grace of God, we'd be just as lost as everybody else. Just as lost. We have to come to Christ, be humble enough to submit to Him, and then finally, we have to be humble enough to go out and reach the other lost. That's our job here. That's what Christ is pointing us to. All the Pharisees that were mad about the sinners coming, we have to be willing to put aside our pride and go after those who are lost. Because if we don't do it, who will? Let's go ahead and pray and dismiss. Lord God, I do praise you and I thank you for saving us. I thank you for your love and your kindness and your grace. You are so good to seek us out and to find us and bring us to ourselves. Help us not to become prideful now that we've been found, but help us to remain humble and to also seek out the lost so that we can bring them to your salvation. Thank you for your love and your kindness. Be with our city, be with our nation. Pray these things in your Son's name. Amen. All right. Well, it was great to be with you guys today. I hope that this message spoke to your heart in some way and that you can grow from it. If you need anything, please reach out to me. We love you guys. And remember that we are branches called to bear fruit for our great King. All right. Love you guys, and we will see you later. Bye.